Hello and welcome to the Life and Fight of a podcast. My name is Jake Cross from Empire Grappling and UK Fighting Championship. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Simon Price. How's it going, Si?
Yeah, good mate. Yeah, good weekend. About yourself?
Slow one, but busy week ahead, and we'll get into it. I'm joined by two awesome guests, Harry Powell, co-director of Pantheon Grappling. How's it going, Harry?
Not bad, my friend. Not bad. How are you?
I'm good, pal. Thank you very much. And the return of Lee Herbert, who we've had on before to discuss submission and grappling events. But on this occasion, he is one of the head matchmakers for Empire Grappling Invitational. How's it going, Lee?
Wonderful. Nice way to start my week off.
So off camera, you were saying that you had a few drinks last night. Is that right?
A little bit, slightly tender. I went to the pub for the first time since they've reopened. So, we'll say I'm a little bit tender this morning, and I've got to do my proper job too while 10 today.
So we'll take care of you, Lee. So I think you know a bit about this card, just a little bit. So we'll get into that. So for those that don't know how I've only just seen, the return of Empire Grappling Invitational is this coming Saturday, the 25th of July. It's weird talking about it firsthand rather than being interviewed about it, but the basic synopsis of it is myself, Lee, and a couple of other guys at the team at Empire were discussing that we wanted to do something. The return of Jiu-Jitsu was desperately needed. We've been lucky enough this month to have Grapple Fest on the 1st, and then we have Polaris, and then we're speaking to Harry and Liam kind of at Pantheon. They're looking at doing something as soon as they possibly can have everything in place. So we're all as a team, even though they're all different technical companies, we all want to see the return of Jiu-Jitsu. And on this occasion, it's a return of Empire's EGI, Empire Grappling Invitational. Si, anything you want to touch on at all?
No, nothing too much really. I had some great matches over the weekend, but got some great matches in the coming weekend. So looking forward to that more than anything.
Lee, you were basically the lead matchmaker in this one. I took a step back. You know a lot more of the middle ground scene of who the highlight guys are. Just talk us through your sort of mindset when you was looking at the guys and sort of what you were looking for originally from our chats.
Yeah, so this started really with an idea to mainly have people who compete on Empire regularly and kind of to reward that loyalty. So I obviously ref quite a lot of Empire events and some of the other local shows quite a lot. So what we were looking to do initially was create exciting matches from people who compete regularly on Empire and reward that loyalty. And then over time, it's kind of spiraled and grown. So you'll notice there's some kind of bigger names on there as well. And that's come just from pure excitement. We wanted to keep it local because obviously there's no revenue being made from this. So we was mainly rewarding kind of local guys, and then we found out kind of world champions and big guys in the submission grappling scene just want to keep busy, so that's kind of helped as well.
Yeah, that's one main thing that we picked up on. I think because I run UK Fighting Championships as well, I know a lot of the MMA guys just want to keep busy through hell or high water. That's just what they need to do. They know keeping busy will keep the sponsors happy, will keep them fit and active and on fire for when they do finally compete to full competition. And I would say out of the 30 or 34 guys that we've got on out of 17 matches, around 10, 12 of them have done MMA before or are actively amateur champions or professionals. Simon's opponent, Jenaid, being one of the professionals, and Aaron Aber. Harry, from your point of view being a neutral and promoting Pantheon as well, what have you seen from this in EGI and Polaris and Grapple Fest that sort of made you a bit more relaxed about maybe putting on a Pantheon in due course?
I mean, look, I think that somebody always has to go first, right? And within Pantheon, we didn't see, as Lee's already touched on, you know, that you guys aren't going to be making any revenue back from this, and that's something that as a small company, you know, Pantheon were also bothered about. But I think that from seeing a Polaris go, see a Grapple Fest go, see EGI come up, you know, that gives confidence to Pantheon, who, you know, behind closed doors, as you've already touched on, we wanted to put something on for a long time, but it was making sure we had everything in place to keep people safe, to keep athletes safe, to make sure that we were meeting government regulations, which is exactly the same as what you guys are doing. So you know, we have been working behind closed doors to try and make sure that we can get something that fits the same bill that you guys are looking at. And obviously, as the government guidelines changed so frequently, it was difficult to keep where the goalposts were. But I think now, in the place that we are right now, it's probably the easiest time in the last 4 months to actually put something on, which is, as you've said, which is why you guys are going, and which is why we're trying to look to do something as soon as possible as well. So I think that yeah, it's only positive for the jiu-jitsu scene. It's only positive for jiu-jitsu and the UKFC athletes to have a team like Empire be able to put something on and you know, allow them to stay busy, as you've already said.
Spot on. Like, this is a question to both you and Jake Harry. Jake and Harry. How did the recent announcement had recently last week? Has this sort of changed things for you from a promotion aspect?
Jake, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Me and Lee were speaking about this a few days ago about the announcement, and it's kind of like an unknown and a positive at the same time, because it's a lot more information than we've had in a long time. Because Boris, the bullet points of it was Boris basically said that he thinks that things will return to somewhat of a normality around November, December time. Now, if you're working the way they've worked over the last couple of months of opening and reducing restrictions, he's sort of doing testers in August, which is a couple of weeks away for events indoor and outdoor. And then from September, October, I feel like the Premier League at least will be back to some sort of capacity. And then from there, it will just be a domino effect. The only thing that I think will take the slowest to come back will be in-house audience at full capacity. I can see stadiums being around 70 to 80% full by the end of the year, depending on the size of the stadium. But indoor events, obviously, if you've not got the right airflow, I think that'll be more difficult. But it's definitely something in the right direction. We're making plans to come back by the end of the year anyway. And EGI was just one of them, sort of put our toes in the water to see what could be. Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that pertains to grappling shows and professional grappling shows like EGI and Pantheon and Grapple Fest and all this kind of thing, especially when it comes to events, is Boris has obviously said from 1st of August you can have concerts and venues can open with limited capacity and social distancing. And I think it will be interesting to see how that comes about and what the actual regulations are behind that, because at the moment it's quite fuzzy. Because look, you know, Polaris generally book out large venues. Grapple Fest have their staple venue. Pantheon, you know, we're looking at bigger venues every time. So it would be interesting to see what sort of revenue and what sort of production value we can put on as Pantheon. As obviously that's one of our driving factors, is we want to bring high quality shows. So I think it would be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months with, you know, larger venues and things like the Premier League and how they're going to handle it. Because look, at the end of the day, we all want to get back to what we're doing, and we all want to get back to putting on shows, and we all want to get back to having athletes, you know, putting on crazy events. So yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I wasn't optimistic a month ago, but I'm optimistic now. I think that things are opening up slowly, and although I am fearful of a second wave and I am fearful of a second lockdown, I think that clearly Boris is attempting to open things up, and I think that can only be a positive thing, right?
Yeah, obviously, I'm out of the 4 shows I mentioned, so Pantheon, Grapple Fest, Polaris, and EGI. I'm the only one that's not signed with a streaming service, which is sort of like it's not a great thing because that's how money comes in, but it's sort of a positive thing because I'm not controlled regarding production value. I just want to put on the best I physically can with the money that's available at the time. Whereas in the other 3 events, including Pantheon, Grapple Fest, and Polaris, they've got a contract. They've got to make sure that the stream is there, and that it works, that it looks good, that they've got the right grapplers on. So many hurdles you've got to jump over. Whereas in my point of view, it just came about more organically and natural to the point where I had no expectations. It was just to, like Lee said, reward the Empire guys, try and keep as many people active as possible, try and keep my UKFC fighters as active as possible, because February 29th was when the last UKFC was. January 25th was the last Empire. We're now 5/6 months away from that. It's a long time that my guys are active, and if I want the best rosters on both, even though Empire's not really a roster, you have to try and keep them active. You have to try and keep your audience engaged, because otherwise interest will be lost. I know for a fact that when gyms reopen, there'll be an influx of people that are chomping at the bit to compete. But some of them will die off. They won't be interested anymore. They'll just think, oh, I've been off this long. I'm not going to carry on anyway. I was doing an R-ing. And that's a worrying thing for gyms. But with regards to EGI, I just wanted to put it on just because it was something to do for the fans for free as much as we could.
Yeah, one of the interesting things to note with this is when we started thinking about this, the government weren't being overly clear with what they were saying. We kind of started this with who do we know who's training, like within small groups or who's in a bubble who's training. Jake obviously knows that with some MMA guys, and I pay quite close attention to the jiu-jitsu scene. And it's just kind of, to some extent, I think because Grapplefest went first, we've kind of used what they did as a template. We've kind of felt fortunate that the official date that Boris announced was the 25th for gyms, and that's the date that Empire's fallen on. So the event would have gone ahead anyway, but that added security of Boris saying from the 25th gyms can open in some way, shape or form kind of helped as well.
Yeah, it was a funny sort of term of events because we were literally talking as a group, what should we do? Should we do this? What date we're looking at? Because the 25th of July was originally the date for Empire in Leeds. So it would have been like EG 17 or whatever. So that date was always fixed for something. So I wanted to try and utilize it as much as possible. As soon as we all as a team agreed, yeah, we're going to do it on that date, 3 or 4 days later, Grapplefest announced July 4th, which gave us a bit of confidence, like, well, they're going, so why can't we? We looked into the reason of that. That seemed to go ahead without any problems at all. Great event put on by Chris and his team. And then I think a few days after that got announced, Polaris were concreted for July 11th. That's gone ahead without a niche. That's good. So it's give us confidence. And then from that, like Harry said before, it's give him confidence now. And there's no sort of bad thing about not going first. Also, there's a good thing about going first as well. You're the first, everyone sort of recognises it. But if you just look at the lay of the land, how it's affected people, how it works, to make sure you're within regulations if you're unsure, or like Lee said, what Boris was saying wasn't that clear. So for a promotion or a business to sort of say, this is how I interpret it, I'm going to do it that way, and then someone later down the line or on the day turns around and goes, no, you can't do that. That's a scary thing because you're putting your time, effort, money. And the main thing for me is I don't want to waste people's time. It turns around on the day that the event was happening, and then we got it wrong. Obviously, 2 events have happened now, so that won't happen. But if we were the first and someone came up and was like, yo, you can't do this. This doesn't work this way. Then that'll be disheartening and wasting a lot of people's time and effort. But now that events have gone by and it's worked fine, I'm 1,000,000% confident that this is the way it's supposed to be structured until we're told further.
You could argue as well, like, because it's quite a small, close-knit community, the jiu-jitsu community, that promoters, like, it's not like old times where it's like, my company only, my promotion only, I'm not going to help anybody else. It's quite close-knit, so you could reach out, ask questions, and sort of find out what troubles they came around and how you could almost do it a little bit better to make sure that you don't come across the same hurdles that they come across.
Absolutely. I mean, look, everyone knows everyone, right? Like you say, it's a tiny scene. Whether you're in London, where I am, in Manchester, in Leeds, up in Scotland, it doesn't really matter. Everyone knows everyone. It's such a small community, and you know, one of the things that I know that Jake prides himself on, and at Pantheon we pride ourselves on, is really this is about the athletes, right? This isn't about a brand name necessarily. You know, all of the brand names are going to be helpful for athletes. You know, obviously we're going to talk about some really high level matchups in a moment. Polaris are famed as being, you know, having some incredible matchups. You know, they've had the Gordons, they've had Garys, they've had Keenans, they've had all these guys, and Grapplefest have had, you know, Craig Jones and Adam Wozinski and these guys, and you know, Pantheon are trying to offer the same high level matchups for the same high level athletes. So I completely agree with you that really this isn't about competition in the sense that one promotion is trying to outlast the other, but instead it's more trying to make sure that the athletes are given the opportunities that they deserve, and given the opportunities they deserve on the highest level shows with the right amount of compensation and the right amount of safety, especially now, right? Like obviously 6 months ago, safety was more like, have you got a medic, and is somebody going to get their arm broken? But now we have to be a little bit a little bit more stringent. And I think that's fine, and learning from the likes of EGI, learning from the likes of Polaris, learning from the likes of GrappleFest will allow Pantheon to be the best promotion it can be, right? And a high tide raises all ships. So
yeah,
I 100% agree with the high tide raises all ships. I feel like on this one as well, I feel like the tournament scene, obviously, which Empire Grappling is a big part of, is a lot more watered down than it was 10 years ago. And watered down not in a negative way, is that there's so much choice. So you're literally spoiled, and there's the great events, and then there's sort of the up-and-coming events. Whereas I think there's, in the submission grappling scene and the professional grappling scene, especially in the UK and Europe, we're not all, I won't say the word spoiled, but we're lucky to have, one, as a fan to watch Pantheon, GrappleFest, Polaris, and then two, it's a revenue stream for the bigger high-level guys that are making a living from this, that have got somewhere to go. Whereas in 10 years ago, being paid for submission grappling or making any sort of living, if you were a high-level black belt coach, it was non-existent. We're very, very lucky right now where we could have a Polaris, then a GrappleFest, then a Pantheon, and then it repeats 4 times a year. And that's crazy to even think of, and how lucky we've got it. All these platforms like Flow, like Fight Pass, or even an independent streaming service or anything like that. And then all the MMA involved if you're into that as well.
I think what helps as well is that everyone's on the same mission. It's, let's elevate professional grappling to the point where it's spectator friendly, gives the athletes a good source of income, as well as the promoters as well. And sort of the more that everyone works together and figures everything out, the more that the grappling scene can be elevated, reaches more people, then the gyms are going to get more members, then the competitions are going to get more entries, and then also the professional grappling events are going to get higher quality athletes who are hungrier and more eager to put on a show, which again just works in a more cyclical motion, just feeding more into the grappling scene as a whole.
Lee, a question for you. So you were a big part of the North and South thing last year. So obviously Freddie and Ross were part of Team South, and that was the finale of Polaris last weekend. That's crazy to think that 16, 17 months on in the world that we're in now, that they're the two guys that are part of a dominant Team South, and Freddie winning that. What have you found from the last sort of 17 months from doing that, and then now being a lead matchmaker for EGI?
Yeah, the North v South kind of quintet thing that we did was kind of dipping our toe into the water with some of the kind of well-known guys who don't necessarily always compete at Empire. And kind of what we've picked up from that really is people tend to be game. They want to stay busy. And if you can offer them exciting matches or just a prospect of some form of excitement, people tend to be kind of willing to engage with you, or even just have a chat with you. They won't shut you down. So I know all the guys from Team South, there was kind of Ross and Freddie, who even then were kind of seen as some of the top guys in the UK. But Ross brought along some people who might not have been as well known, so like Max Bickerton, a couple of others as well, who are very, very high level but don't have the name yet. And what's kind of carried from that is, this is a free event. There's no revenue. It's a chance for people to build a name. So a lot of the matches on this card are matches where I know they're going to be good matches, and it's a chance for people to kind of get noticed by kind of Pantheons, Figure 4 Polaris, and kind of start to build a name for themselves, because Freddie wasn't ridiculously well known kind of 2 years ago. He was well known by people in the scene, and kind of, if you know, you know. But he's only really broken through maybe in the past 6 to 8 months. So that's kind of the platform that we've used for this. Someone on this card may very well, it could be Jed, Ellis, it could be someone lower down the card. They could start being more well known as we get along.
There is, we'll touch on as many of the fights as possible, at least in a little detail or in detail. But there's a few MMA guys. If you're watching this as a jiu-jitsu fan, you might now come across some MMA guys that I work with really closely, that I think are UFC level. So that's a cool thing to sort of be a part of. And if you're a fan as well, that you get to say, well, I watched them on EGI, or I watched them on Empire, or I watched them on Polaris, Pantheon, GrappleFest, and they sort of built the career through towards UFC. Because you do see it, like on Polaris, you had Tom Breeze, who's sort of active between UFC and the submission grappling scene. So he's sort of doing both because he physically can. He trains in both. But there's obviously guys that just train MMA, that do MMA. There's jiu-jitsu guys that just do jiu-jitsu. But there is sort of that mixture, which you'll see on this card, which will create some sort of different dynamic and exciting fights. So I think we should get into fights at least. We've talked in as much detail as we can about sort of the build-up. So I'll quickly share the screen for the guys. So for Harry, your co-director, so Liam Cann against Ben Hills. So I'll sort of describe how this one came about. Me and Liam speak quite often because that's who helps Empire come to Leeds all them years ago. And I was seeing how he was physically. He just wants to get active as soon as possible. And then we spoke to Ben Hills just after Grapple Fest. I've knew Ben for, I've mentioned on the podcast, over 10 years. My first experience at corner in MMA was against Ben all them years ago. So whenever I see or speak to Ben, it's literally about speaking about all that and all the history. So Ben wants to keep active as much as possible. He's one of the most active guys over the last sort of 2 and a bit years after taking a big hiatus. So this is a fun match. Both of them were so game when I said that these are the opponents that I've got for each other. Harry, let's touch on it then. You've got a connection to this bout with being a really close friend and a business partner of Liam. How do you see this one going?
I mean, look, if I was to come here and choose against Liam, I'd probably be out of a job, right? So I will have to go with Liam. But look, I mean, Ben Hills is a very good grappler, a very, very good grappler. He's known for his size and his power. He's got an incredible guillotine. He likes a Darce choke. You know, he's not scared of the leg entanglements. And, you know, if for anyone that's trained with Liam, you should know that he has an incredibly diverse leg entanglement game. The Scramble guys, the two fellow directors of Scramble, Fred and Mike, are both phenomenal grapplers, and having those two guys to roll with daily is only going to make you a good grappler. I think that Liam's higher level competition experience will pay dividends here. I mean, you know, he's competed on Polaris twice. Obviously, he's been around competition scenes. He's competed in Italy at super fight shows, and obviously he's had his Army MMA career and whatever. That's what I think will pay the dividend. But look, Ben, as you say, Ben's been extremely, extremely active. He's been on Grapple Fest only a couple of weeks ago, and he's jumping in here now. The man's fearless, and he's definitely got the size advantage over Liam. So I'll be interested to see how it comes out. But as I say, if I don't pick Liam, not only will I get mercifully destroyed when I see him next, I probably will be out of a job. So yeah.
Yeah, this one's particularly interesting to me because Ben, I might be wrong in saying this, but I'm pretty sure he's the most winningest grappler ever on Grapple Fest. So that, to some extent, is because he's been on Grapple Fest a shed load of times. But I think he's got like 7 wins. So he's active a lot. And then there's 2 storylines in this, really. So Liam's very much, or was very much, kind of slept on a little bit up until he went on Polaris late notice and he beat Ben's teammate Chris Fishgold. So there's a storyline there, so a bit of redemption. And then the other storyline is Liam's usually hovering in the 70 kilogram, like 75, 78, somewhere between 70 and 80 kilogram mark. And he's about 85 now. So I'm kind of interested to see how what impact that has.
Yeah, I mean, Liam ate the old Liam for breakfast over lockdown and has been lifting basically as much as he can lift. He told me the other day that he was doing a leg press of like 325 kilos and I only threw up in my own mouth. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, people don't know that Liam and Fred and Mike all had a powerlifting background before they started jiu-jitsu. And you should go, when you guys meet Liam, get him to show you photos of him when he was lifting. He was an absolute monster. And, you know, he's somebody that clearly has the body type that he can put weight on quickly, and he still looks lean, and obviously he's lifting big numbers, and he's going to need to be able to do that against Ben. Lee's touched on the storylines really well, but Ben is not a slim chicken, and he's not a weak man either. So I think Liam's going to need that extra size if he's going to be able to contest with the sort of the dominant and aggressive style that Ben has.
I think hearing that new news about Liam, then I think it's going to be interesting to see how his grappling style adapts to his new size and strength. Does he still try and play like he's in his 70 to 80 kilo range, or does he adopt that bit more pressure and the sort of the heavier style that comes with the newfound strength?
Yeah. Simon. So if let's end on this one because we've got 17 to talk about. If you were to pick, obviously Harry's picked Liam. Can't really go against him. Simon, who do you got in this one? Me and Lee, for people that are listening, me and Lee are staying completely independent. Me being the promoter, Lee being the head matchmaker. I don't think it's fair to have an opinion. And most of the fights we've made anyway, and Lee will agree, and most people agree anyway, are quite close anyway. So, but Simon, if you had to pick, who would you go with?
Can't go against an MBR teammate. So I'm going to have to go with Hills on this match. But regardless, I think this is going to be a very exciting matchup.
Agreed. So we will go to the beginning of not the card, but the way my folder is working. Give me 2 seconds, guys. I just need to flick off so I can get rid of my Excel because that was what was flicking up. So Simon, we'll start with you on this one because this is a previous teammate of mine and yourself fought in Kieran against my business partner in our Navy at UK Fighting Championship. He's the head matchmaker there for the MMA side. He's a pro MMA fighter. For people that don't know the story and know a little about the story, Aaron's history is unreal. He suffers with cystic fibrosis, has for a long, long time, and also has defeated cancer last year. Which was an unreal turn of events, and then he returns to the pro MMA scene in December, flies out to Dubai in February, gets the win there. So Aaron's literally any hill you put in front of him, he's defeated. But Kieran's no easy feat. Simon, talk on this match for us.
Yeah, so last time I trained with Kieran, I think he might have been a blue belt. But from what I've heard and from what I've seen, his style's not particularly changed too much in the sense that he's a very technical grappler and he sort of plays that way. Whereas Aaron, he's a bit more aggressive. He's got that more the MMA style. So it comes to me like a bit of a clash of styles here. I am swaying towards Aaron, more so for his experience, his MMA sort of background. And yeah, he's just a bit more athletic as well. But if it goes to decision and it ends up being on submission attempts, I couldn't tell who that would go to, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, there's a few matches similar to this on this card where it's very much a clash of styles. So you've got the MMA style, and Kieran is the classic jiu-jitsu style. He's definitely going to pull guard. And he'll definitely be playing from the bottom. And it's kind of one of those of, is Aaron's positional control going to lead to a submission? Or will Kieran be able to get a sub off his back? And I imagine that'll be the story of the fight. I'm anticipating this being fairly high-paced, particularly with it only being kind of 8 minutes. The other aspect of this, which hasn't been mentioned yet, is it's in a cage. You can use the cage for leverage. Aaron's really experienced, so if he's clever, he might choose to kind of edge the game on the floor towards the fence, and that totally changes the dynamic.
Yeah.
I feel like Lee just mentioned, it is in a cage for people that haven't realised. My camera's messing up a little bit. So basically, we wanted to do the original one we started talking about was the submission and underground aspect, and I liked that. And because I work with a lot of MMA guys, and that's sort of my other promotion as well, I sort of wanted to mix them both together. And I think the way Chael Sonnen does it in submission underground, that works. And I feel like submission grappling right now, it has its forte. There is slightly different variations of rule sets, but the adding the cage element and the fact that you can utilize it like an MMA cage, so you can use it as a third wall, you can push up against it, use it for positive and negative effect in relation if you're trying to get a submission or trying to defend a submission. But obviously the same MMA rules that you can't grab into it and stuff like that. Harry, have you got any sort of thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, when this came up, and obviously we've spoken previously about this being in a cage, I think that having cage time and having an understanding of how to use the cage will be massive and can be massive if Aaron can get it there, right? And I think that if you have a guy that has a dominant top game and he can push you against the fence, even if if he's sat to guard and he's crumpled up against the fence, it's still then very hard for you to maneuver your neck, maneuver your hips, and start to throw up anything essentially. And obviously if you've got a dominant wrestler, his hips are going to be far away, so his legs are going to be hard to get to. And I think that if Aaron can get it there, then I would favour Aaron in this matchup. Yeah. So
predictions, Simon, we'll start you then going to Harry. So if you were to pick a winner, who would you got here, Simon?
Do you know what? I'm gonna go with Aaron for this one purely on cage experience, and I can see it being a sort of using the cage to his advantage. Because I know Kieran's got a MMA team that can train with that in this gym, but I don't know whether he's going to be able to get that experience over this time period at the moment. I know that they've managed to get the elite status at the gym, but I don't think he'd have been able to get the training partners available to deal with someone of Aaron's experience at this moment in time.
Harry?
I'm going to agree with Simon. I think Aaron can take this. I think a heavy top game, push him against the fence, and keep away from any of those leg entanglements or any of those shooting up arm bars or triangles or any of that sort of stuff is that's the route to victory here.
Sweet. So we'll move on to the next bout. This is literally an alphabetical order from the first name. Have I crashed? No, well, I could crash then.
No, you don't. Good.
So the next one is...
This is a great scrap. It's a great scrap.
This is a great one. When Grapple Fest was happening, I was speaking to Kate, and I met her originally in January. She fought Karolina Wolchik in the final of the Empire tournament in January in Leeds, and I was very impressed with her performance against someone like Carolina, who's one of the best MMA pro fighters in the world right now in the female divisions, and to even take her to a decision against someone like Carolina was very impressive. Kate wants to stay active. I know a lot of the ladies want to stay active around this, and I was speaking to Hannah's coach, who said that he might have a lady interested, and it was Hannah, and I've known Hannah for quite a few years now. I'm excited for this one because it's kind of like you had with Grapple Fest with like the Fionn and the Tiani fight. There is a bit of a weight difference, not as big as there was at Grapple Fest, but interested to see if this comes into effect, or does the old adage of jiu-jitsu and size doesn't really matter, it's all about the technique and stuff, whether that comes into effect more. Lee, just talk us through this one.
So Kate is one of probably the most aggressive female fighters that I've refed, to be honest with you. She doesn't take a step backwards. Is very, very heavy on collar ties and kind of pulling the head, and likes front chokes and things along those lines. Very similar to Carolina in that sense, to be honest with you. And Hannah is as game as they come. Always competes on Grapple Fest and big submission only shows. Very competent at the leg game, very well rounded, and he comes from a very, very solid team. So I would be very shocked if this goes to a decision one way or another. I know both girls will be hunting for subs all the way through, and I imagine this is going to be pretty fast paced.
Harry?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that this will end up in a sub by somebody. I think, Kate has been extremely active on sub scenes, whether it be at tournament or whether it be on invitational shows. Obviously, she's got a relationship up in the north as well with Shane Curtis, having trained with him and those guys there. And yeah, having, we saw Dominic Dillon's performance at Polaris, and having him around the gym is obviously going to be helpful. But Hannah Garrett is a monster, an absolute monster. And if anyone's watched her fights before, you know that she's a monster. If not, go and watch them. But yeah, I mean, what a scrap this is. I'm really excited for this one. Really, really excited for this one.
Simon, a few comments, and if you had to pick a winner.
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not too familiar with Kate, but from the description of the two guys, this is sort of keying up for quite an exciting match. Hannah's fellow from ASW, fellow teammate. So had to pick a winner. I'm going to have to stick with teammate in Hannah.
Sweet. Harry, if you had to pick a winner, who are you going with?
I mean, look, let's be fair. If Simon's gone for Hannah, I'll take Kate. Kate's got to get some love somewhere, right?
I am honestly looking forward to this one. I know me and Leah spoke about it. It's one of the card has turned out to be so stacked in so many different areas. I've always got favourite matches, and I can honestly, hand on heart, this is a fight that I'm looking forward to, and I'm proud that it's been put together on my show. It's exciting. It's two girls that have a great future going forward, love to grapple, love to sort of get stuck in. And I feel like this will be a great pillar of women's jiu-jitsu right now. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's one of the things we wanted to make sure we supported as well. We wanted as many kind of female matches on this card
Couldn't agree more.
as possible. And that was kind of high up on the list of things to do. So there were a couple of female grapplers who we were trying to get matches for, and I'm just so happy this was one of the matches that we could make.
Sweet. So next up, so on the order we're doing Cann, we've covered that one, is one which I'm really interested into because it's Teddy versus Carl. I'm good friends with Carl from Stealth, known for many years now. He's from my neck of the woods in North Manchester, but he's against my UKFC lightweight champion in Teddy Stringer. So I said I wasn't going to pick. I have to pick Teddy on this one. It's just one of them things. I love Carl to bits, but I think he understands. I've spoken to him. To sort of people that don't know Teddy, he's literally been fighting MMA less than 2 years. He's fought in the IMAFs. He's fought multiple times in UKFC. He's avenged his only loss when he unified the lightweight title in February. He's come on leaps and bounds to when I first met him nearly 2 years ago. And one thing that really opened my eyes to him on his debut in UKFC and his debut in MMA at all is we asked him if he just wanted to be on camera for a couple of minutes because we was all in the hotel together and we just wanted to kill some time. And he jumped on it and he was really, really good on camera and he spoke and he didn't stutter and he wasn't nervous. And I thought at the time, he was like, I think he just turned 18. At that time, I thought that was amazing. And he always said he will be UKFC lightweight champion. And he's just said, tell me who to jump through. And he fought 3 or 4 good guys. And a dominant performance against Aftab Javed, I think it was last June. He won the title in October and then unified it in February, avenging his loss against Mike Thompson. Teddy is one to watch for the future of MMA, maybe in the grappling scene as well. He has won multiple medals at Empire Grappling, so I'm definitely looking forward to this one. But I'll jump it to Lee for the Carl side as a training partner. What do you think Carl brings to this?
So I know both guys pretty well, to be honest. I've refed Teddy a number of times. I know he's kind of very, very active in the MMA scene. This is a rematch that some people don't realise. So these two guys faced off in the gi at Role Models maybe about 12 months ago, and Carl came out on top, pretty dominant points victory. But I know Teddy gets better very, very quickly, so it could be a little bit closer. You see the belt difference, but in actual experience, they're similar. People might discount Carl a little bit because he came up against a very talented Jack Brown on Grapple Fest recently and got caught in a heel hook, probably in just over a minute. I say this kind of not without kind of thinking about it, but Carl is one of the most slept on grapplers in the North. Like in the gym, you physically won't understand. He's regularly tapping black belts in the gym and good competitive black belts. So I'll be interested to see if, particularly because he won on points against Teddy last time, if the gap's got a little bit closer. But we'll see. And there's the cage aspect.
We mentioned earlier on about the cage aspect. Maybe that will come into effect to help Teddy in this one. But if it was just a straight up jiu-jitsu match, gi or no gi, Carl likely would have the advantage, a bit more experience, the higher belt level, and the high level training partners overall. But the cage aspect, like we mentioned with Aaron and Kieran, that could really come into effect because he did submit Mike Thompson in February to unify the titles, and that was from the bottom. He used a cage. It was very, very well done. That could be a good thing for him. It might not be. Carl might have the experience and nullify that. I'm really excited for this one. I really am. Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Lee that Carl is quite slept on in the Northern game, and I understand that in his picture Teddy's holding a belt, right? So already the promotional eyes for people will be like, that man's got a belt, he must be really good, and of course he is very good, but I'd be interested. I'm interested to see how this goes no gi, right? Because obviously MMA doesn't really pertain to the gi that much in the modern era, and Carl having a dominant win over Teddy in the gi will mean that Teddy will want to get that back. So I'll be very interested to see how this goes. I like Carl in this one, though. I think as Lee touched on, the Jack Brown match at Grapplefest is, look, Jack Brown's good, man. Sometimes you get caught. What are you going to do? But I think I like Carl in this one. I think Teddy has a great chance. Obviously, he's got two submission wins on his MMA record, a DAS and an armbar. Armbar obviously being the most recent one against Mike Thompson. But yeah, I think if Teddy can implement his wrestling game, which obviously is big for MMA, then I think it's going to be a close matchup. But I do like Carl in this one.
Simon?
I think I'm looking at the sort of stats as well here. Like, training experience may come into play here as well. But I know from sort of training with a few of the younger players sort of around that, their creativity is very different to sort of your older grapplers. They have completely different shapes they tend to throw up. And I think the sort of no-gi aspect of it, with him being a bit more of MMA, I am swaying more towards Teddy at the moment. I say we're not too sure how they're both training over lockdown at the moment. Stealth's got a very, very good breed of grapplers there, and they've got a solid core of players in the gym.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Teddy's training's been like, but Carl has been part of the elite squad with me in helping Chew get ready for Grapplefest and a couple of others. So Carl's been in camp now for probably 8 weeks. Been doing 3-4 times a week for 8 weeks with high-level guys, brown and black belts. So, yeah, if that helps.
So, yeah, that does change things, in my opinion, now then.
I think that changes things massively, yeah.
Yeah, massively. Like, I don't have Teddy on any social media, so I don't really see what he's doing or how he's getting around. So
Teddy's been training. He's got a bout on Celtic Gladiator on the 22nd of August in MMA. That's in the north as well. So I know he's actively training. He wouldn't take a bout unless he was training. But like you say, Carl's been part of the elite squad in Chew, and Chew's very high level with Lee and stuff. I feel like that just shows the level that Carl is. But I'm interested to see, and like I said earlier, I like the dynamic, and I've said it on a few podcasts, of the MMA versus Jiu-Jitsu. It seems to lean more towards a jiu-jitsu guy overall, but the added aspect of the cage brings new elements into it. And if anyone's seen the UFC from this past weekend, Kelvin Gastelum, more of an MMA wrestling athlete, and then Jack Manson gets a great, was it Achilles lock, Simon?
Heel hook.
So I knew it was what that. It just shows that you could literally have the takedown, you're in guard, you go to stand back up because that's where you feel more comfortable, and then that's when these grapplers, who are the high levels that love the ankle game and the foot and the leg game, wrap it up, and once you've got the knee pass, it's very difficult to get out of. I think you will see that on quite a few matches within this.
I think the difference with that, though, is they're not going to be trying to get back to the feet. There's no striking involved, so once it's down on the ground, the MMA guys are going to be using their base and their experience to stay on top, dominate that top position, pass the guard. And because that's what their game's oriented around, like, having trained with like numerous MMA guys across all levels, their base is very, very different to what jiu-jitsu players are like. They aren't swept very easily, whereas a lot of jiu-jitsu players, they will take the sweep because they may find something in transition. Whereas an MMA guy, they will fight tooth and nail to stay on top because that's what they know, because that's where they can strike and that's where they can win. So I think I'm gonna go with Teddy on this one. just sort of throw a little bit, play devil's advocate here, and yeah, I'm going to go with Teddy.
There's a few matches with MMA guys against a jiu-jitsu person, but the thing like that we've tried to emphasize is they're very good at jiu-jitsu. It's not going to be like MMA stall and play not to lose.
Yeah.
Or every single kind of high level MMA guy on here will be playing for the win. And part of the thinking behind that is traditionally they aren't going on the big sub-only shows. They tend to be kind of the back of some matchmakers' minds. It's very hard to be in kind of two sports and know everyone from both sports. So one of the things that we kind of looking to do with these matches is kind of get them front of mind for shows like Pantheon and Grapple Fest in the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, something that Liam is massive on is MMA versus jiu-jitsu matches, or MMA guy versus MMA guy in a grappling match. He absolutely loves them, and that's something that we've had on Pantheon 1 with submission fighting, right? We had two guys put on some 4-ounce gloves and they were allowed ground and pound if it got there. And the rule set needs a little bit of tweaking, but the idea is definitely there. And I think that we have some matches that we're looking to put together in the future for really high level MMA guys to go against jits guys or two MMA guys to go together. Obviously at Pantheon 2, we had Mark Diakese and Ben Hills, and I mean, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I completely agree with Lee that it's always interesting to see MMA guys go against jits guys and see what happens, you know?
Yeah, I feel like you're completely right. Grapplefest have great MMA guys on as well from the beginning, like Lee Chadwick and stuff, Bellator MMA fighter. I feel like that's the right way to go. I feel like it does bring both audiences together, and I feel like it brings in the audience where you do sell tickets that way, where it's more of an intriguing matchup, and it brings the best of both worlds. And I feel like what Lee said, this can elevate both of these guys into the namesake of the bigger shows. And Teddy's one of them guys who has the UFC potential. He's one of the best amateur lightweights in the country. He's fought welterweight in the IMAS because of the same day weigh-ins and stuff like that. He's a guy that he's only 19. He's already an amateur on one of the best promotions in the UK. In a lot of people's eyes, not only because I'm biased, but a lot of people do say that if you're a UKFC champion, you're probably one of the best in the UK, if not Europe. So I'm intrigued to see, looking back in this in a couple of years, and see where both of these guys are. But we'll move on to the next match now, which is one of the most exciting matchups that we've got on the card. Definitely, Lee, talk us through this one.
Yeah, so when we started this off, this was very much eyed as a main event before we got kind of Ellis messaging asking for some other matches, and Liam, and we added those as main and co-main. This was seen as the main event. This is one of probably the most exciting matches we could have made. So Tyreeze and Shane have fought before. Tyreeze flying triangle Shane straight off the bat at ADCC UK. At the time, Tyreeze was 15, and quite a lot of people saw that as kind of, I won't call it a fluke because Tyreeze flying triangles everyone, but kind of if he wouldn't have flying triangle Shane, it would have been a mismatch. In the past kind of year, both guys have been ridiculously active on the sub-only scene. Shane and Tyreeze are constantly on submission-only shows, and Tyreeze has rounded out his game big time. I do predictions quite a lot for kind of Grappling Insider and a couple of other websites. Generally, in the past with Tyreeze, I always had he will either win in under a minute or he will lose, but he's rounded out his game now. So this match is incredibly close. Shane's going to be hungry to get that kind of loss off his back as well. We saw Shane in Polaris against kind of some of the most talented grapplers in the UK recently. And here he'll be looking for the win just to get a loss to Tyreeze back.
Harry?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a couple of guys in the UK scene who are real prospects, but at the top of that prospect list is probably Tyreeze, right? You know, in all of the competition he goes to, he'll jump into purple belt, brown belt, black belt divisions if he can, just to test himself. And you know, that's gi and no gi. The kid's a phenom, right? The kid is an absolute phenom. He's actually in London at the moment doing some training with a very high level grappler in preparation for this. I mean, we've seen Lee's point, actually, and this is not to be too critical of Tyreeze, but we've seen Lee's point that against Aidan Pinder at Grapplefest, Tyreeze threw the kitchen sink at him, didn't manage to get the finish, and then Aidan took his back and finished him, right? But that's not the Tyreeze that we're going to be looking at Empire. Shane, I mean, look, there is absolutely no shame in going up on the Polaris tournament and losing to Bradley Hill. Bradley Hill is a phenomenal grappler, and he's got, you know, he's 25 also, but he's had his black belt for what, 4 years now, 3 years. Like, that's a very, very legitimate man, and there's absolutely no shame in Shane taking a loss there. I think that this is going to be highly contested. We know that Tyreeze likes the leg lock game, and we definitely know that Shane likes the leg lock game. So we could see some really interesting entanglements there. I think Shane has some good top game. I think Tyreeze has some good wrestling. I know that he's been working on that a lot. So I think this is an absolute barn burner. I really, really do. I think it's a phenomenal fight to put together.
I think one thing I'm hoping that doesn't happen with them both enjoying the leg lock game is a double guard pull and sort of playing footsie for 8 minutes. I can't see that happening, but that is also like a fear of mine when you do see two good leg lockers. But from what I've been hearing through the grapevine, Tyreeze's sort of wrestling games really stepped up. And like I say, Shane getting onto Polaris and playing against Bradley Hill and the way he sort of performed there, this does set up to be a very exciting match. And if it wasn't for the other some of the other fights in the card, I'd have said that this would have been potentially fight of the night.
It was, Lee will admit to as well, this was one if not the main event because of the way we were sort of planning it out, and then things just started to get a bit complicated because of the amount of messages we were getting, because we had the card was made up within, what was it, Lee, 48 hours originally?
Yeah, we like I said, we wanted to fill this mainly, particularly because we'd not had another announcement from Boris, with local-ish guys. We didn't particularly want people having to travel down from Scotland or London and places like that because of kind of the problems with travel. And then Boris has kind of announced some things and slightly lightened things, and that's how we've ended up with like Ellis and Jed. So this was geared up as the main event. One of the things that we've been thinking about as well, which is worth mentioning, is the impact of the cage on leg locks. So the rule set we're using is essentially the Grapplefest rule set, but it's in a cage. So we had to make a decision on, are we going to reset you when you hit the cage, or are we just going to leave it? And after thinking about it, we thought, so I'll use an example here. Myself and Simon are in a leg entanglement. I'm spinning to try and escape. When you hit the cage, you suddenly become stuck. And if I'm using a spin to escape, that can become an advantage to the attacker. The other option was, no, we'll reset you. And the worry was it'd become a little bit like WWE, and you'd get people clambering for the ropes, and it'd be very much kind of Ric Flair. So we're not going to reset people. So that may have an impact on the leg game. I don't know what it'll be. I have a theory it might be positive, but we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like there is a story in this matchup as well, back to the matchup, that Tyreeze was 12-ish when I first met him, and I rolled with him and stuff, and obviously I'm still a lot bigger than him now, but I was definitely a lot bigger than a 12-year-old back then. And he had a lot of the fundamentals, which under Steve Henshaw, which was really nice to see for such a young guy, and he was picking up really quickly. And then around a year later, Steve was in the co-main event against Mushers Lana on EG at the first ever Empire Grappling Invitational we did in North Manchester. And Tyreeze was in the crowd supporting his coach as a 13-year-old, and then now he's 3.5 years later as a 17-year-old man now, that he's in one of the feature bouts of the evening against one of the best submission grapplers and active grapplers in Shane in the country. I think that's a good full circle to be in.
The James Gallagher-esque story, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. One thing I like to say on Shane is quite active especially in the Empire scene and the advanced divisions, and Lee picks up on this a lot more than I do, because dealing with so many people that come through the door, it's hard to pinpoint everyone. But when Shane was one of the names mentioned for EG, I was like, yes, definitely get him on. He supports Empire. He's one of the best in the country. He's easy to deal with. He's humble, and he's fun to watch. And I think Lee will back that up.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. There's a load of interesting dynamics in this. There's kind of the rematch. There's kind of they both go on Empire a lot. The other one that I'm going to chuck in before we do predictions is Shane's trying to get his weight down because he's planning to fight MMA soon. So he's planning to fight at under 70. So he's bringing his weight down from. He used to hover at about 80, 81. Tyreeze is going the other way. I trained with Tyreeze very recently, and he is big. His dad's big as well, so I'm predicting he's going to be like 90 kilos
when he's done,
when he's fully grown. So the actual size difference is probably now in Tyreeze's favour, which is just bizarre considering when they faced last time it was the other way around.
Would it be fair to say? Sorry, Simon. Would it be fair to say Ubereeze?
Oh Jesus!
Oh, here we go. It could be. I'm trying to figure out if he's going to end up proper Atos bomber jacked at like 90 kilos, just huge.
Well, the
I don't think we could be throwing around the word Ubereeze with all the connotations that has.
No, not yet.
I don't think we could be doing that.
So about Shane with his training for MMA, is this not going to put him in the advantage then with the cage? Like, is he training in the cage already? Is he working his wrestling for that and sort of using this camp to almost get a little bit of experience prior to that jump?
I'll be interested to see if people strategize around the cage, because it could be people just pull guard and it's as if the cage isn't even there, or it could be that is the strategy. So we'll see. Tyreeze has done MMA before as well. He's got experience training with a cage. This is just a good match all around, if I'm honest. I think this match deserves to be on any show. It's a great match.
I agree. Harry, we'll start with you. If you're going to make a prediction, who's it going to be?
Oh, Jesus. I know both of these guys really well, and it's a tough one for me to call. I think... fucking hell. Go to Simon first. This is like picking between my kids. Yeah. Go on.
Oh. Right. I'm going to make this decision because I know both of these quite well. I'm going to go with Tyreeze off his recent performance again on Grapplefest. His last opponent was no joke. And with him coming up in weight, getting stronger, I'm going to have to go with... Because am I right in thinking that these are both sponsored by Brotherhood as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's a big part of Tyreeze. He's actually training like an athlete now, and like he's in full strength and conditioning. Plus the fact he's growing, it'll be a very close match, I imagine.
Yeah.
I think this is why I'm struggling to pick, right? Because what I see happening here is we saw against Giselles where you know. If you were being super critical, you could say that Tyreeze didn't bail on the leg game and go to something else quick enough because, you know, he had lots of bites of lots of heels, but Giselles either toughed them out or escaped diligently. And then, you know, it was around the 8-minute mark, 9-minute mark that Tyreeze decided to change that up a bit and use a different tactic. I think Shane is probably more tactically aware and will be able to switch up his game quickly if the leg entanglements don't work. However, I mean, as Lee says, Tyreeze is only getting bigger, he's only getting stronger, and he's only getting more experience. The kid's 17, like 17 years of age, and he's already in the position he's in. I'm going to take Tyreeze and oh, Jesus, that could bite me in the ass. But I'm going to take Tyreeze just because, as Lee says, he's training as an athlete now. You know, he's coming off a win. Shane is obviously coming off a loss, which means that he'll be looking to get that back. But I think Tyreeze's confidence will and his well-rounded game will potentially take the win here. But really, this is a 50-50 fight. It's so tough to pick. It's so tough to pick.
There's like this is no slight on Shane that we're picking Tyreeze. Like,
agree.
It's on the flip of a coin. And if I'm honest, I think local bias is what's swaying me towards Tyreeze a bit more as well.
I think the bias that's moving towards me is I know of Giselles and I know that he's a good grappler, a really good grappler. And Tyreeze looked right at home in there, to be honest. And that's not to say that Shane doesn't look right. And this is this is why this is so difficult, because Shane would look right and right at home in there as well. But I think that if I was picking at straws here, Shane coming in as an underdog anywhere, there seems to be something in his mentality that he plays the underdog role. Whereas I think Tyreeze has absolutely nothing to lose here. He's a 17-year-old kid. He just throws himself against walls and see what sticks. And that, I think, will pay dividends in higher level matchups.
Lee, I don't know about you, but hearing these two have the conversation about this matchup is sort of like, it's like a nice humbling feeling, because Lee, you put this matchup together and then it's on my show. It's like, this is what we wanted. We wanted this sort of conversation. We wanted as close as matches as possible, where people were struggling to pick. And I understand why they're coming along with Tyreeze. If I had to pick, I would probably pick Tyreeze only because he literally live where I grew up, within 2 miles of that. And I feel like I have a connection with Tyreeze. But Shane... I personally can see Shane getting the submission here, but I'm very, very intrigued by this.
Yeah, this is going to be a super, super close match. It could go either way. I'm kind of predicting Shane will play bottom and they'll go from there. And it'll be a case of, I think it'll be more of a tactical battle. Does Tyreeze get frustrated? Does that mean that he kind of jumps on a sub unexpectedly? Or does it mean that Shane takes advantage? We'll see how we go. I'm pretty happy we've made this. Both guys jumped at the chance.
Yeah. I mean, just as a final closing words here, like, look, you just touched on something really interesting there, Lee, and that's the other side of Tyreeze's youth, right? Tyreeze's youth means that he wants to win, and he'll take chances to win. And if he takes a chance that's slightly a little bit unorthodox and leaves himself open for something, then Shane will take his counter and will take it gladly, right? And I think that Shane is the more experienced grappler, in the sense that he's been grappling for longer, and he's had a lot of high level experience. Shane, at the moment, Tyreeze hasn't gone against anyone of Bradley Hill's stature, and that will have paid Shane dividends in his experience points. And there is something here that Shane is the veteran in this matchup, and as we've seen from lots of MMA bouts and lots of jiu-jitsu bouts, the veteran a lot of the time gets it done, right?
Yeah. Move on to the next one, which is one that I'm looking forward to. So she's not got a belt on in this photo because I didn't have one available, but Dakota Ditcheva is the UKFC women's flyweight champion. She's a Muay Thai world champion of a number of times. She is the poster girl right now for the UK. She is one of the hottest prospects going forward. She's also on Celtic Gladiators. She also defends her title in October for our show as well. There's so much you can say on Dakota. She is one to watch in relation to the UFC caliber, like you said about Teddy as well. On the flip side of this is like a full MMA bout. Charlie is a UKFC veteran as well. She's on the last show. She was winning against Levi Steadman in the fight, but was finished in the second round. If the fight carried on the way it was going with Charlie, I was quite confident these two would have fought for Dakota's belt in October. So it's when I seen that Dakota wanted to keep active, and speaking to Charlie as well, it was a matchup that I wanted to put together because it would have been interesting, even though you don't have the striking aspect, to see how both girls come on. It says Dakota's a white belt. I've spoke to her coach, Phil Turner. She was ready to get a blue belt. She doesn't do the gi as much because she's a Muay Thai girl. She's actively in the MMA game, but she's a very, very high level girl. She competes in Empire. So it's technically two blue belts facing off each other, two MMA girls facing off against each other. And I'm excited because Charlie's hungry. Charlie wants to prove something against someone like Dakota. This is the conversation that I've had with her. And Dakota wants to keep in that winning streak right now.
Yeah, I didn't know, being from a jiu-jitsu background, I didn't know bags about these two, but I spoke to my co-commentator, Violet Bennett, who's kind of probably one of the top females in the UK jiu-jitsu scene. She's a really, really strong purple belt, and spoke to her about this match, and she said this is a really, really good match. It's kind of very even, and she's really, really interested in how this plays out. So kind of a glowing recommendation from Violet. So I'm looking forward to this as well.
Oh, definitely. I'm not familiar with the two of them. Dakota, I think early on in a MMA sort of transition, she was coming down to cams a little bit. But then I think she made the she's fully in at Aspire now. And I think going off the sort of pedigree of fighters coming out of Aspire at the moment, not to say that One MMA's not got much going on, because they've got great program there as well. But they've got a good team of young fighters there, and that's swaying my decision towards Dakota taking this for this one.
Harry, have you got much to say on this one? Do you know any of these girls?
Yeah, so I come from a striking background, so I do know of Dakota. I don't, however, know too much about Charlie. Because of that, I'm just going to sway Dakota because that's the fighter that I know. I've seen her UKFCA performances, and she's a phenomenal striker. As you've said, that white belt isn't really a white belt; it's just the lack of gi, and I can't blame anyone for not putting the gi on. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this. As you say, this is an all MMA bout, and these ladies may well face off in an actual cage, in an actual MMA fight against each other sooner rather than later. So this is a nice little preview into what could happen if if strikes were allowed. So yeah, I mean, let's see it. I'm more than ready for it.
Yeah, from when I was speaking to Phil recently, deal with Phil quite a lot, and he's got a couple more on this card from Aspire, the MMA guys as well. He was literally ready to give Dakota her blue belt because of her performance at Empire in January. She won gold there, and then she defended her UKFC belt in February and was doing did really well against a grappler in that fight and stood up on her own. He was ready to give her a blue belt. There was no doubt about it. Lockdown hit in effect, COVID, etc. So it's delayed a lot of things. The matchup as a whole, I'm excited to see who utilises the cage more because that's their comfort zone, who tries to keep the girl off the cage, who becomes out the stronger grappler, who's got something to prove. I'm definitely excited. Is Lee gone, did he say? Is he there?
I think he's dropped off the chat, but...
All right, okay. We'll come back. But I'm excited about this one. Here he is. So you both said you're both picking Dakota, Harry, Sam, is that right?
That's right,
yeah. Lee, we'll move on to the next match. So where are we now? So another female match. Lee, let's touch on this one. Libby being your training partner.
Yeah, so Libby's probably one of the, very similar to Tyreeze, up-and-coming female grappler. She's a blue belt, but she's not a blue belt. Trust me, she's been training for close to 10 years. So she's very, very, very talented and has won everything you can win at kids level, basically. And she's just starting to step into kind of competing with adults regularly. So Libby's probably got the actual advantage in terms of jiu-jitsu on the ground, but what she kind of lacks in experience-wise is kind of the physicality of competing with adults. And Megan's very experienced in MMA, kind of very, very well-rounded and brings that physicality. So this match really was made as your traditional kind of jiu-jitsu MMA, but also kind of somebody who's not used to that physical side. So this will be really, really interesting. I know Libby's been kind of working throughout lockdown because she comes from a family of grapplers, so she's had the benefit of being able to train 5 times a week with a dad and a mom in their house. So this will be good.
Yeah, some points to put out with this one. Just like we spoke about Charlie, then Charlie and Megan are literally like best friends. They're not from the same team, but they do train with each other and cross-train at Next Generation quite a lot and with each other. What the decision they made in lockdown was Megan moved in with Charlie and a partner, Emma, and the baby, and so to make sure that Charlie and Megan could keep active. From there, they both jumped at the chance to get on the card, both jumped at the chance of the opponents. Megan is a former IMAF junior world champion MMA, so she's been through the mill. She knows a competition against great grapplers, and against someone like Libby, it's good competition for Megan, especially she's looking to turn pro in due course, so it's the sort of the higher level caliber grappler. And then Libby as well, stepping up into the adult scene against a stronger opponent, someone that's more physically strong. It's good competition for her at this stage, just like with Tyreeze against Shane. Harry?
So I don't know either of these ladies. I don't know too much about them. I mean, from Lee putting his promotional hat on, I'm extremely excited to see Libby. I think any youth prospect is something that's really exciting to me. Having trained 10 years at the age of 16 and having 2 grappling parents sounds like a recipe for success to me. Megan, obviously being an IMAF junior world champion, that's a phenomenal background in martial arts training and all sorts of experience. But I'll take Libby here just because Lee sold me, so I'll take that one.
Simon?
I think, yeah, from going off what Lee said, because I've seen Libby, I've not trained with her personally, or I know her dad, and the gym that, like say, Stealth's got a great caliber of grapplers there. But I have heard similar things with regards to the physicality of the sport, with regards to Libby. And with Megan's background in the IMAFs, I think she may have the edge on the experience aspect as well as the physicality aspect. So I think I'm going to sway towards Megan for this. But knowing both of their caliber, I'm very excited about what this match brings. Like I said, I've heard Libby's a very technical player. So it'll be interesting. Sort of like it's a clash of styles again, this one. And I'm interested to see how it pans out.
Awesome. So we'll quickly move on to the next one. We've got quite a few to get on, running out of time. But Andrew, Hardwick and Alexandre Moura. Lee, talk us through this one and how this one came together.
Alexandre's teammates with Shane, got a massive glowing recommendation from Shane. Andrew sponsors Shane. So they obviously know each other quite well. Andrew trains at Alicat. There's kind of a little underlying pool of hidden talent from that gym. So there's Jack Fletcher, who we'll talk about later, Andrew, and a couple of others who are regularly on Grapple Fest and some other shows. And the thing that sticks out about anyone who comes from that gym is they don't tend to stop moving. They put on exciting matches outside of Neil when he faces Nam in the gi and they kind of sit there. But generally, they put on exciting matches. So yeah, this will be interesting to me because I think they're both very, very similar. They're both kind of tall, physically strong. I think they're both well-rounded, very competent at the leg game, very competent on top, very competent on bottom. This will be exciting.
Yeah.
I read a few comments from you and a prediction.
So again, I only really know of Andrew Hardwick. I don't know too much about Alexandre Moura. So based on that, I'll keep my comments very, very short. I will pick Andrew because I know him. But obviously I know of where Alexandre's from. Not an MMA is a great gym. But I agree with Lee. There's a lot of hidden talent at Alicat, Jack Fletcher being one of them. But yeah, I'll take Andrew in this one.
Si?
Yeah, having trained with Andrew, I'm not too familiar with Moura, but having trained with Andrew, he's very, very strong. He's very dexterous as well, like his leg game and the grips he can take. Very, very good. Looking forward to seeing this. And mate, he's got a mustache. Like we can't forget about that. So I'm gonna go with Andrew on this.
Sweet. We'll end it on that one there. I know what the next matchup is. It's a main event. I'm going to skip through that. I want to talk about that last. So we'll move on to another MMA versus Jiu-Jitsu guy. Harry just mentioned on Jack Fletcher, another one of the sleepers at Alicat Academy, and you've got the one of the best prospects in Europe right now in Marlon Jones, who's the UKFC bantamweight champion and other promotional champions as well. Definitely UFC caliber in the future. One of the best up-and-coming young guys. Bit like the Teddy, the Tyreeze sort of effect. His talent is unlimited right now. But face someone like Jack. Jack is a seasoned jiu-jitsu guy, someone that could possibly nullify a Marlon, put him in a loads of tricky positions. Lee, we'll start with you on this one.
So I know both these guys pretty well. I've been reffing Marlon at Empire for kind of 2 or 3 years, and I've watched him kind of grow from the blue belt division up to purple belt, which he's got in the last year, and he just hunts subs. He's billed as an MMA guy here, but he's lethal off his back. I've seen him hit arm bars. He's very competent everywhere. And I know Jack pretty well as well from kind of in my thinner days. We competed against each other about 4 or 5 years ago, and the jump he's made from 5 years ago to now is insane. Like, he at the time when I competed against him, he isn't ridiculously physically gifted, and he was kind of waiting for kind of his technique to overcome that. And in the past kind of 3, 4, 5 years, that seems to have happened. He's winning divisions at Empire at purple belt, the division that Marlon would be in, and he's competing on the submission only scene super frequently against good guys. So I've seen him compete against Ollie Bates on the first Grapple Fest. He won by decision against Thomas Burrows as well. Thomas is quite hard to beat. So I imagine this will be pretty close. The underlying thing with Jack is he doesn't stop moving, and he's ridiculously difficult to beat. And I know that he's rounded out his game recently, and he's kind of got leg locks in his back pocket as well. We'll see. I'm interested on this because it could go a few different ways.
Harry, some comments and a decision, prediction?
Yeah, so I like this matchup a lot. As Lee touched on, Marlon is obviously very good from his back. I've watched a couple of his fights on UKFC, and obviously I've seen him compete at Empire before. Very competent grappler, but I think Jack Fletcher is an absolute fucking demon. I think his top game is phenomenal. Phenomenal. You go and watch him in Grapple Fest, especially the most recent one, and that guy is a motherfucker. When he gets on top of you, it is so hard to deal with, and you can tell. Like, you know, I think Lee's fair in his assessment to say that he's not the most physically gifted, but Jesus, like, he just swarms you, and I think that's something that Marlon will be used to, because he'll be training with MMA guys that will want to keep him, want to stay on top, will want to pressure pass, will want to be active, will want to move him, will want to restrict his movement. So I think Marlon will be aware of that. But I think in just a JIT scene, I have to go with Jack Fletcher here. I think he's a phenomenal talent and a really good grappler. So I'll take Jack Fletcher.
Simon?
I'm going to have to agree with the two gents. Like, they've both said what I was going to say. Like, Aspire's got a great team of young athletes, but I can see Jack just coming away with the W for this.
Very interesting. I'm looking forward to this one. Just like on the Teddy thing, I've got to go with my champion, and I've known Jack for a long time, so I think he knows he'll respect
You're
that.
You're a UKFC shill. That's what you are.
I'm going to support my guys. It's always going to be the case, and it's strange because I see them both as sort of my guys as part of the Empire roster and as part of the UKFC roster, but Marlon being my champion, I would have to go with him. I'm trying to stay away from predictions though. I like this matchup though. I feel like it's a good test of both of them to see where they're both at, because Jack to get a win over Marlon is a big thing, especially against someone that could be UFC caliber in the near future, in the next few years. And then Marlon to get someone against Jack he's not really in the submission grappling side and the submission grappling events, but it's a good way to see where he's at, especially with the lockdown as well, and trying to keep as active as possible. Next up, we have Ieuan Lewis versus Riley Daniels. Lewis is a student of Araneva at IPC Wrexham, actively on the Empire scene, is a very good grappler, and someone that I like to have at the events and competes quite a lot. Lee, you know more about Riley, touching him.
Yeah, I know both guys. I've refed them quite a lot. Riley's actually one of my favourites to ref, to be honest with you, because in the kind of the blue belt division that they're both in, Riley's like ridiculous in the sense of, how can I describe it? What's the kind of swang and bang version of grappling? He literally just hunts subs and doesn't stop.
You're saying he's Diego Sanchez of grappling. That's what you're saying.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, and he's kind of well-rounded everywhere. He's competed against some of my teammates before as well, and I know the times where they've come off the mat, even if they've been victorious, they've been like, that guy just does not stop, and he puts a pace on you.
Does wrap and tap make any sense? Does that help? He wants to wrap you up and then tap you?
That sounds a bit, I don't know, 50 Shades SJ, to be honest. We might part that.
I was trying.
Yeah, it's a strong effort, I'll give you that.
Go
on. But yeah, this'll Riley's got cage experience as well. He obviously comes from Nottingham MMA, and he's the only guy specifically before we release the rules to ask, can we use the cage for leverage? So I don't know whether or not that's going to play into his strategy. We'll see.
Harry?
So I don't actually know either of those guys, but I'm sold on it. Let's see it. I'm down for it. I won't make a pick because I don't know either guy, but I'm down for it.
This is opening the card, and it's been selected on purpose to open the card because I know it's going to be fast paced. So,
Yeah.
Simon?
I've only heard about Riley through Shane, just through speaking to him, and I'm not familiar at all with Ieuan, unfortunately. But from what I've been hearing from Shane is Riley is one to watch, and he's a great talent in the gym. I've not seen him compete, but going off what I've been hearing, I'm going to sway towards Riley, but I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I feel like this is a prime example of what we're trying to do at Empire, is trying to give the platform to the guys that do have the unknown aspects. And like Lewis and like Daniels, I wasn't familiar with Daniels as much as the other guys, but I've knew Lewis for a number of years, working closely with Aaron Aby and stuff. This is a prime example of what we want to do at Empire to make sure that these get the platform they deserve. And it could be both of them, it could be one of them which takes it and runs with it. But I'm excited that this is opening the card because you never know. This could set the tone, set the bar, and everyone's got to try and step up from there. Next one, we've got another MMA and Jiu-Jitsu guy. The first one that I'll touch on is the age difference, but there is a story behind why this matchup was put together. So Liam McCracken is the UKFC featherweight champion, so one of four champions from UKFC on the card. So Dakota, Marlon, Teddy, and now Liam. Liam has been a prospect for a number of years, has come through the ranks. He's one of the highly touted, just like Marlon, just like Dakota, just like Teddy, to be UFC caliber. And I know I've repeated that a long time, but I'll be very, very shocked if they don't make it to the big time. The reason this comes together is there's a bit of a story behind it. Simon gone? Looks like we lost Simon. But
no, Simon's shooting to work, so
right, okay.
We'll fly solo on these. Some people will have to do without.
He did mention that. There's only a few to go through.
I am the oracle of predictions at this point.
Yes, you are. Liam had an original opponent. We won't say who, just because it's not fair on them, but had to withdraw before we announced the fight. I was speaking to a couple of coaches, and I put Anthony's name in the hat. Anthony and Liam had fought each other in Empire before. It was a close matchup. I think Anthony was up on points, and then sort of last few seconds, Liam got the submission. So Duffy wants sort of the redemption on that. They're both from Liverpool. They both have that sort of friendly rivalry. Both coaches like each other. Both competitors like it. It's sort of like a humble affair, but they've both got something to prove. Liam wants to prove the next big thing and carry that on. Duffy wants to get that W back. Lee, let's talk for it.
So I know Liam through weird internet things. He used to do breakdowns of the top amateurs in the country on Reddit. So he'd do like a ranking of amateurs. This is like 4 years ago when he was 15. So I know he's insanely analytical and he's super well rounded. Duffy I've actually competed against, so he is absolutely, and I've competed against him on sub only. He is as game as they come, doesn't care what the age is, not particularly overly bothered about weight. He's got kind of a ferocious guillotine. He's very well-rounded on the legs. I'd break this match down probably. Duffy, as happened when he was up on points, has probably got the positional advantage, the experience there. He knows kind of how to control matches on a submission-only front. And Liam, I would guess, is slightly more likely to get the submission in this match, but we'll see.
I agree that I'm really excited about this one. Harry, what do you think?
I mean, you're going to be the UKFC shill and go with Liam because he's your champion. I don't know too much about Duffy, however, but yeah, I like both of those guys. I think Liam McCracken's a cracking fighter. Is going to be a big thing in the future. And look, if Liam won their first matchup, I'll take Liam again. I think obviously the age and the experience difference is important here, but we have a young and a hungry fighter up against a seasoned veteran, and yeah, I like Liam here. I think that's a good matchup.
If obviously it's not going to be in the same location, but if anyone has the sort of advantage on an EGI basis, there is 3 people on this whole card that have fought on EGI before in relation to the fight night. It's not the quintet thing because there's a couple more on that, but Anthony is one of them. Kieran is another, and then Ellis Younger in the main event. They all did the original EGI in February 2017. So whether that plays an advantage because they've been around the name of the brand before, I don't think it'll be that big, but you never know. But I'm definitely looking forward to this one because I like to see like not a redemption story, but someone trying to get the W back, got something to prove, and then Liam just wants to keep that winning streak alive. He's fought and beat some great MMA talent in the last year, including Corey Fry and Nikola Ivanovic. He's the who's who of the UK, and he doesn't say no to a fight. And if people didn't know, Liam is stepping up to lightweight at the next UKFC in October to face Teddy for the lightweight belt. So that just shows the caliber that Teddy and Liam.
Phenomenal scrap. Phenomenal scrap. Phenomenal.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that. So it just shows that Liam is hungry to fight the best, and he puts Anthony up there to sort of prove that he is one of the best in the UK, and Anthony as well wants to do the same. So the next matchup we've got a final few. Simon's not even here for this one. So my co-host in Simon is against Jenaid Ebanks from Reps MMA. Jenaid is a pro MMA fighter, so don't let the blue belt fool you. He got that a long time ago. He's signed currently to the EFC in Africa. So he was part of their Ultimate Fighter. I think it was called The Fighter or something like that. He was part of that season. So he's been through stuff where it's sort of a lockdown and no crowd, and he's been completely a part of that. He's been, because he's a pro fighter, he's got the elite status. He has been training through this. And obviously, because I speak to Simon a lot, he knew I was doing this card and wanted to jump on as soon as he possibly could. Wanted the toughest matchup he possibly could. And I think this definitely does deliver. Lee, what do you think?
I didn't actually make this match, so I can be slightly biased, but not massively. So Simon, yeah, he's very well known, obviously, on the grappling scene, and Jenaid's kind of big and a big physical presence. So that's kind of the match here. It's very similar to some extent to Libby and Megan in that sense. Simon's kind of far more experienced with grappling, but I'd say Jenaid a very slight physical advantage. I know Simon's gorilla strong, but we'll see how this plays out. I'm not too sure on this one, if I'm perfectly honest.
Harry? Well, I don't know too much about Jenaid, but bearing in mind Simon was in the chat a second ago, and if he reviews this and I pick against him, he'll probably beat me up. I'll go for Simon.
I apologise, just so people, if Harry rushes off, Harry's got to go in around 8 minutes, so we'll fly through as many of these as possible. Next up, Lee, Sam Quinn and Tom Somerset.
Yeah, this is a great match. This is Tom in the grappling scene isn't massively known, but I've been reliably told that his ground game's that good that he can just basically stand at will in MMA. So that opens up his standing game. My coach kind of knows the team he comes from quite well. He's got kind of a good little coalition down there of training partners. He's a partner of Teddy, but there's kind of a lot of grappling down there. And Sam's been getting the eye of people for quite a while now, to be honest. He's kind of one of the most active on the sub-only scene. He's constantly competing, flies around the world to compete. I think what caught quite a lot of people's eyes about Sam is when he was a blue belt, he beat two very respected black belts at an Empire competition. And if he can stay uninjured, he is very much one of the bright lights of the future for UK grappling. It's just a case of maintaining consistency for him. Agreed.
So Tom is a MMA fighter as well. He's one of the welterweight contenders at UKFC, and then Sam is just the who. He beats the who's who in the grappling scene, and is fastly rising to one of the contenders in the grappling scene. Harry, quick one on this one.
I like Sam Quinn in this one. I think he's a really, really good grappler, and that's not to take anything away from Tom. Obviously, Tom comes from a great team, but I think Sam is a problem. I really do.
Sweet. We're running out of time, so it's no disrespect to the next few fights. We just need to run through these. So I'll quickly touch on this one and a bit of Lee as well. So George Samuel is a student of Steve Nightingale at Reps. He likes to keep as active as possible. Has done a few submission grappling shows in the past, but I feel like he's a big test against someone like George Gardner. from Stealth. I've seen him compete many a times. He was part of the quintet team. Was he at Stealth that won that? Is that right, Lee?
Yeah, so this has been made kind of on purpose, to be honest. So the Stealth team won that quintet, and they faced reps along the way, and these two never faced off, and they're the same weight. It made sense to match them together, same belt or same experience, we'll say. I know George Samuel's not graded, but that's been made purposefully because they just happened to miss each other at the quintet.
Harry, do you know any much on these two? Quick.
I don't know either of these gentlemen. But I'd be happy to take anyone's direction on the pick, to be honest.
I'm excited for this one to see kind of the unknown, like Lee said about the quintet and how that would have gone. I think the betting favourites will go towards George because of the experience.
They both call George. That's a good. The betting's definitely going to go on someone called
Bet for George. I'll keep it as that.
So whoever loses has to run out of town, right? That's the old school.
Loser loses George.
Yeah. This will definitely 100% be a finish. Either way, I'm not going to say who, but this will be a finish. I can guarantee this one.
Nice. Right, next one. We have got 2 more after this. So, Curtis Taylor, Lincoln Grappling Coalition against Jake Moody at Alliance Derby. Lee, you put this together. Run us through it.
Jake, whilst a blue belt, again, anyone, anywhere, anytime. Well liked, well loved, very game competitor. Gets some big upsets on occasion, and he's quite well rounded. And Curtis competes on Empire very often. He's got his purple belt in previous kind of 12 months. So in experience, these two aren't overly different. I'm not going to say Jake called Curtis out, but when I asked Jake for some potential opponents who he had in mind, Curtis was one of them, and he kind of jumped at the opportunity. So, yeah.
Harry?
Yeah, I like Jake Moody. I think he's a good grappler. I don't know too much about Curtis, but I'll take the underdog in Jake. Who doesn't love an underdog, right?
Agreed. I'm excited for this one to see who does push for the W. So last one before we get to the main event is another one for Reps MMA. Chris Walker. He is one of the unsung heroes in the sort of the grappling and MMA scene. And I'll sort of create a bit of a story here. So he is the guy behind UKFC that makes sure everything gets set up. He's Mr. Strongman. The strength on this guy is unreal. Sets up the cage, moves the cage around, makes sure everything's on time. And then he's sort of transitioned to Empire as well, because I work so close with him at UKFC, to where he's the guy that makes sure that all the mats or the equipment, everything that's needed gets from wherever it's located to the event on time, helps me set up. And he's the guy that does this literally for the love of the both sports. He wants to compete as much as possible, but because of his work, he owns his own mechanics in Preston. And because he sets up the events, it's very difficult for him to compete as well, but likes to jump in as and when he can. He'll do it off an hour's notice, 10 minutes notice. He's one of them guys that he just does it to compete, win and lose. He's not too fussy, does it. And he's very, very unorthodox. So it's definitely a good matchup, this one, against Phil, who's got the MMA background, just like Chris. He's been on the grappling scene for probably close to 10 years now through Martin Stapleton and SPG Rochdale and Full Contact Performance Centre. I'll just run through that one rather than a prediction, because this is so evenly matched. I think Phil will have the sort of the size just, but knowing Chris's strength and how unorthodox he is, I can see Chris either catching Phil with something, or if he doesn't, then Phil might reverse it and get into something there. So we'll move on to the main event, because I know Harry's got to shoot for work, and we want to try and move it for the main event. So main event, Lee, talk us through this one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so we weren't planning on having such a marquee main event, just because of kind of COVID and some other things. And we had 2 matches late notice. One of them was Liam and Ben. And then the other one came about because when a world champion sends you a message saying he wants a match, you don't say no. And Ellis kind of put the bat signal out, so to speak. He put a call out on Instagram saying he's just looking for sub-only matches, and he messaged us directly. And again, this was a case of saying, right, who can we match a world champion with? I asked Ellis if he had any potential opponents or kind of matches he wants again, and Jed was top of that list. These guys are 1-1. The story behind it is Ellis, when they first faced off, submitted Jed, I believe. And then most recently they faced off on Grapple Fest, and Jed took the win by decision. Jed has specifically said to me he will not be happy with anything other than a sub, and this is to get that advantage. Yeah, world champion versus what is the tippity top prospect of sub grappling.
Yep.
You've got kind of Ross and Freddie who have broken through to the mainstream, and Jed is kind of just slightly below that. He's kind of
For now.
For now, yeah.
Yeah. I think, look, this is an absolutely phenomenal match, and we could talk about this for half an hour easily. Ellis put on an incredible performance against a really seasoned sub-only grappler, Craig McIntosh at Grapple Fest. You know, he took a decision loss supposedly based on the rule set, and you know we can argue the toss about rule sets and whether Ellis could have just chucked in a sub attempt and won that match, and we could talk about that forever. But look. Jed put on an absolutely phenomenal performance at Polaris against Dinu Bacalet. And look, both of these guys are absolutely incredible grapplers. I think Jed's ceiling is the stratosphere, and to be honest, I think Ellis is similar. Both guys are super evenly matched in age, in relative size. Jed is sitting around 80 kilos, and I think Ellis is a little bit under that. But yeah, just an absolute barn burner of a match. I think Jed has spoken to me also and said that he wants the sub here, and Ellis, you know, was interested in that match. As Pantheon, we wanted to put something similar on. Both of those guys are phenomenal, and obviously we were well aware that they were one-on-one. But you guys got there, and this is an absolute barn burner. I think that what we saw with Craig McIntosh, it's fair to say that Ellis is very positionally dominant. And obviously didn't look for too many subs in that one. But Jed is a submission hunter. And if anyone has seen him compete at any tournament or any submission grappling show, then you will see that he hunts for the sub always. And, you know, he took Dinu's back in less than a minute, and the match was over relatively quickly. And Jesus, this is a crazy matchup.
Yeah, this is kind of the kind of ends of the sphere. So Ellis at the minute is brown belt world champion in no-gi.
Yep.
One would argue if he maintains that at black belt, he could potentially be the standout male black belt athlete in the UK. We've got kind of Bradley Hale and a couple of others, but none of them have quite won big IBJJF titles at the black belt level yet. And Ellis is on the track to potentially do that. And Jed is kind of no-gi focused, sub-only focused, and he's looking to kind of be kind of your Ross Nichols or your Freddie, and that's kind of where we're at. Ellis is, he was unfortunate on Grapple Fest. He lost to some extent because of unfamiliarity with the judging criteria, and he'll be a little bit more familiar with that now. He's looking for sub-only matches, so he's trying to get experience in that as well.
Sorry, Harry. I definitely think this rounds us up for a great event. The matches that we've put together as a team. I just want to thank the sponsors that help us sort of put this together. So Progress and Barefoot have always been with me since day one. Swifty Scooters are coming on board. I put it in the group. The trophies with the winners we'll get. I'll be posting them, or they might have already be up by the time this comes out, but they are cool as fuck. So thank you very much to Jason behind Swifty Scooters. AP Hall, Design and Build, the guys and new sponsor, they are supporting me right now. UK Fighting Championships, even though it's my business as well, but I'm business part of that, they're still a supporter of it, and they still give back to Jiu-Jitsu as well. Mad Skills, Tim McKnight, friend of the show as well. He does all the tech and everything behind it. Loves him to bits. Iddy Pure, John Dank, who's fully enough just messaging me, wanting to drop off some of the soap that we'll be giving out to the competitors at the weekend. So thank you very much, John and Natasha, for that. And then my cousin at Mountain Skills, who does some behind the scenes video for me. One thing that we want to touch on quickly before we lose Harry is what we're going to do, and me and Lee have been discussing this, is because this is a non-profit event in relation to this 100% loss that we've discussed with Harry as well, is we're going to do a thing where if you enjoy the event, it's free no matter what, that you can donate towards the event to help us with the cash flow and stuff like that, because we want to put another one on. We want to see Pantheon come back. We want to return as well. So there will be different things that we want to do. An idea is one of the EGI t-shirts that we're getting made through Progress and Barefoot that you can donate, but you still get a t-shirt, so you're not getting something or nothing, and you still get to enjoy the event. If you want to donate £1, if you want to donate £10, get the t-shirt for it, £15, whatever. we'll put the links up. If you can support us in bringing jiu-jitsu back, it's there anyway. Whether you donate or not, it's not going to change. We're doing this for the love of grappling, for the love of jiu-jitsu, and for the love of competition. And I think Harry would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, make jiu-jitsu great again, lads.
Yeah, this is very much everyone on this card is doing it to stay active, and we're doing this for absolutely free. It'll be streamed for absolutely free. After we announced we were doing this, some of the messages we've had are ridiculous. We've had that many messages of high-level black belts asking for matches, and all that the donation does is, if we get closer to breaking even, then Jake can put one of these on again, and we can't continue to do these super frequently at a loss. So that's all that the donation's essentially doing. It's just making it more likely we can do another one this year with high-level matches.
Absolutely. I can't echo that statement enough. Look, I mean, any invitational that gives an opportunity for grapplers to get on and have high level matches is something that I, as a person outside or inside of my Pantheon role, can support. So get behind the invitational, watch it, consume it, pay some money. I know that money is tight for everyone at the moment, but pay some money for a t-shirt and support the guys. And look, we know anyone that's from the north and the Midlands and some of the south guys, if they bother to travel, they know that Empire is a really well-run tournament. So you can expect similar in the invitational. A big shout out to Lee and a big shout out to Jake for putting this on. And yeah, I'm just expecting a great show.
Yeah, the aim is, and it's down to the internet on the day, is that this gets streamed live on Empire's YouTube, so we'll put all the links to it. If worse thing happens and we can't get the stream out, it'll be recorded and put out immediately. So we will get it out in some sort of content. We prefer live. That's what we want to put out. But with the budget we've got, not everything is going to be possible. We're going to try and put the best sort of product we can out for you guys. So it is free, so you're not going to lose anything. We're going to try and keep it as professional as possible. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Harry, you've been a legend for coming on. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
hoping to
having
see
me.
good things
Thank
from
you very
Pantheon in the next number of weeks. Lee, Mr. Matchmaker, you've been a legend in this as well. The matchups are unreal, so thank you for putting in the hard work there. Simon's gone now, but thank you for being my co-host. And enjoy the event. If you've got any questions or recommendations, get at us, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Speak to you later.